again, Internet Explorers, and welcome to my channel. Let's dive right on in. Hello everyone, today I decided to do an art challenge. This one is an art challenge where I decided to paint with tea. So let's start by going over the materials that I used. So I used the Canson mixed media paper. I used my Grumbacher 12 round brush, and then I used some tea. So I tried to get a variety to have different colors that I could use for this painting. So the types of tea that I used were black tea, green tea, and mint tea. So I sort of tried to get a dark color with the black tea, and then the green tea and the mint tea, I was trying to get, a lighter color, but also a different shade, which worked out pretty well, actually. I was pretty surprised that it worked so well. And then the last material I used was Micron fineliner for the lines at the end of this project. So I first want to talk about my sort of tea story, because I really love tea, and I have loved tea for a long time. So this challenge was just sort of a perfect fit for me, because I love tea and I love art. But yeah, tea was just really important to me for a long time. Even now, like, I have my own tea set up in my room. I have a water boiler, like, right next to my desk, so whenever I need some, I got it right there. But like for a year or so, a while back, I actually grew my own tea as well. I had like chamomile, lemon balm, lavender, those sorts of things. And then I also had hibiscus. I had a hibiscus plant, and I wanted it to grow, and I really loved having that little tea garden. So I really love tea, which made this challenge really fun. It was really interesting just testing out, seeing how different teas worked, like which ones would be darker, testing them out, like also just like brewing little tiny portions of the tea was interesting, trying to get the right ratio of the tea leaves to the water to get the color I'd want, watering it down and making it all work. It was a fun process, kind of like a science experiment to get it to work. So yeah, that's sort of my relationship with tea. I love it a lot. So now let's talk about the artwork, because it was really fun. It wasn't easy, but it actually worked a lot better than I thought it was going to, and I definitely think it would have worked better if I'd done it on watercolor paper, but for some reason I had it in my head that I wanted this square artwork. I wanted it to be square for some reason, so like all my thumbnails in my sketchbook were for a square piece of artwork, so I had to use the mixed media paper because it was the only paper that I had that would fit that size. But it handled it all right. There was a little bit of buckling, but it wasn't terrible. Okay, so the problem with the tea was, even for like my darkest brewed color of the black tea, it still didn't have a very dark color on page, and I really struggled with like layering it up, especially because it wasn't watercolor paper, so I knew it wasn't going to handle too much water, but I wasn't going to get it as dark as I wanted to, so it took a lot of layers. Fortunately, layering up the tea worked pretty well. I was pretty pleased with how the layering worked. It wasn't like you try to put another layer on and then that would take the layer underneath it off. That's always really annoying when like cheaper watercolors do that. That's really frustrating. So the tea actually worked pretty well for layering. And in the end, I got a lot more contrast than I thought I was going to at the beginning, or just when I was testing out the colors of the tea on a separate piece of paper, like my swatch paper. I was really getting kind of nervous at that point, like they all sort of blended together and they looked really similar, and I was kind of worried that you wouldn't be able to tell there was any color difference. But it worked out pretty well. It wasn't the most amount of contrast though. Like if I had watercolors, it would have been much different and you would have been able to see a lot more contrast. Even if I was limiting my colors, I would have gotten some better, darker sections. So it was a struggle for me, especially because, like I've talked about before, I really love contrast. In artwork, it makes it more dramatic, it just sticks in my mind a lot better, and that appeals to me. So having contrast is something that I really enjoy having. Like, sometimes I just want artwork where it's the stark black next to white, and you have that huge amount of contrast, and this just didn't have it, but it definitely had more contrast than I thought I was going to get. Alright, so the other thing I wanted to talk about was blending two colors together. So like, for especially when I was trying to do some shading on the face, like thinking about under the neck or under the arms so that it looked like a 3D object and you could see some dimension in it. So I wanted to sort of blend out the darker color into a lighter color so that it wasn't a harsh line or anything, but that did not work at all. I couldn't get that to work. It was really odd, like it stayed where it was put, the color did. I couldn't drag it around anywhere else. Which of course wasn't working when I wanted to do shadows or like under the chin. I don't want it to be a hard line. Sometimes that works, sometimes for a different style, but this one I wanted it to be pretty soft, especially because I didn't have a full range of colors or tones to use, so I didn't want it to be like a hard line anywhere with this. It would have looked really out of place. So that was a challenge, and I just gave up at some point. Just no blending. We're giving up. And then let's talk about the green tea. So in the background you can see it's sort of a more peachy color, definitely a little bit more brown, and that was the black tea. It doesn't look black at all, but that was the darkest I could get it. And then the cup that she's holding of this tea is a mixture of a black tea and the green tea, I believe it was. It was a mixture of two teas and then layered on really heavily. And I sort of just like blobbed on a bunch of water of the tea on it. Like it was a mound of water, and I just like hoped it would dry at some point, because that was the only way I could get like enough color on there. Just hope it would dry. But yeah, the hair turned out pretty well. That was the green tea, and you can see it's a pretty vibrant yellow considering it's tea. So that was so many layers to get that color, but I ended up being really happy with that color and how much it stood out from the color of the background. Like, you can definitely tell they're not the same color. So yeah, that's sort of all I have to say about this artwork. I hope you enjoyed seeing me paint with something new, some tea. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Until next time, live life respectfully. Alright, bye.